Okay, before I can fit this gearbox, I've needed to order a few things. I need a crankshaft locking pin, which is 85p from CFS, but their website isn't working, so I'll have to contact them tomorrow and get one of those on order. And I also need some Molly Coat assembly paste, which seems quite specific, so I've managed to find that instead of going to CFS for £75. I found some for £14 from an alternative place on the internet, so that's quite good, but I won't be getting that till the end of the week. So I can't fit the gearbox yet on the power takeoff there, but I've got a few other bits and pieces I can be fitting. So I'm going to put the exhaust manifold on, which, just a bit of an observation here, the welding isn't too fantastic. This looks great on the outside. I mean, I'm not one to brag about welding, I suppose, because mine's not the best in the world, but back in the A series days with all the minis, that would have been polished and flowed, so it looked amazing in there. But I'm not going to mess with it because it's a two-stroke, and as Rotax says, these are all tuned for the particular engine, so there'll be no fiddling going on. So we're going to pop that on, probably pop on the fuel pump and pop on the carbs. Once I've got this on, I can then undo some of the head bolts on this side, because you don't mess around with the head bolts until you've got the manifold on to keep the two cylinders nicely aligned. So I just got to slacken those on so I can get the radiator top mounts put back on as well. So it seems to be the basic order. Let's get cracking. Right, tonight's bit of fiddling is mounting the fuel pump. Now, how this went on originally was it was sort of just bolted through there using a couple of these fairly ugly penny washers, just stuck on the back, bit Heath Robinson. So I didn't really like that much, so I've made myself a bit of a bracket out of aluminium, which will bolt onto there and allow me to bolt the fuel pump on a little bit more securely. And the great thing is, would you believe it, that my aluminium bracket is 5 grams lighter than those two penny washers. So 5 grams saved. Not that's going to make a great deal of difference, but every little helps. I even made these two little aluminium spacers, look like a couple of polos, just to offset it from the engine frame a little bit, so we can get the clearance on the outlet pipe. So that'll all pop on there. Let's see how it bolts up. All done. There's a new bracket mounted on. A couple of hex head bolts, and a bit tidier than some big old fat penny washers holding it on there. So the only thing I do need to double check is that I've got enough clearance for my I think it's called an impulse tube, just to run the pump, just so that it's not rubbing as it comes up past this. But I think it should be right. Clearance looks pretty good, so pleased with that. Got the new carbs on, mounted on their inlet manifolds, looking very nice. Realised I've made a bit of an error though with the throttle cables now, in the fact that I didn't tighten these up before I put the engine on, so I've got to fiddle my way in there with a couple of spanners and see whether I can get all these all tightened up. I'm sure I should be able to do something. I'm not taking all that off again. I'll see what I can do. Okay, well, in pretty much my next breath I realised that I've got a bit of a problem, because I've got two throttle cables and there's two carbs, but I've also got to run the oil pump. So a bit of a question to everybody out there, how do you think I should split this throttle arrangement? I can split one of the cables so it runs a carb and a fuel pump, an oil pump, or what I could do is split one of the throttle cables so it drives both carburetors, and then I just run one of these to the oil pump. Feels a little bit better to split the throttle cable into two to run both carburetors. Seems more logical, but I'll be interested to see how other people have done it. I know, Mark, you've got a Shadow, which is a two-stroke, which has got the oil feed. So it'll be interesting to find out how you've done yours. Something to ponder. Also, time for a quick thanks to the guys on the Microlight forum. I asked a question the other day about bolting this on, and I wasn't too sure about removing the head bolts. So these studs have got to come off so I can mount those two brackets on there. I asked the question whether I'm safe to do that or whether I should undo everything and then torque it all back down equally. But what I've been told is it should be fine to just undo two at a time to get each bracket on. But what I wasn't aware of is that you can land it with coolant leaking up past these. So I was advised to use some adhesive to make sure that that doesn't happen. So I'm going to undo them two at a time, put some adhesive underneath the bracket and then underneath the head of the stud, and then bolt it all down. Got my torque settings on the wall, 22 Newton meters for the cylinder head nuts, and hopefully that should all be fine. So this was the stuff I was advised to use. Thanks to Finn, who sent me the details in the end. So it's this 736 red sealant. So I'm going to use a little bit of that underneath the bracket and a little bit underneath the heads, and that should stop any of the coolant escaping. There we have it, top radiator bracket mounted, and the head all torqued down, and the head bolts sealed up. Thanks everyone.